Hi, and welcome to this Divine Alchemy training. It's Laura Lucas here, and I'm going to take you through my Divine Alchemy process that helps you transmute the limiting thoughts, beliefs, fears, doubts, and worries that you have, the ones that are holding you back and sabotaging you from living out your destiny, to transmute them into divine truth really quickly and easily, so that you can get back on your path and actually live what you're supposed to live. This is a process that I've been refining really over the past 15 years. And if you'd asked me 15 years ago, I would have told you that this is a mindset process, and it is very logical. And for that reason, it's really good at it's really good to calm the voices of your ego that are really logical, and really want to tear down everything that's going on for you. But it's more than that. It's more than a mindset process. It actually, if you allow it to be and engage with it, is a deep energetic shifting process, and that'll become clear as we go through the process and I explain it to you. So I was given the words divine alchemy about a year or a year and a half ago, by the universe. They just came to me, and I realized that actually that's what this process is. It alchemizes, um, really, the lies that our egos tell us, turns them into divine truth, and that divine truth is real treasure. It's like gold, hence the alchemy. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you. I have a slideshow, um, and I shall share that with you and take you through it. So bear with me while I share the screen. Here we go. um, Let me just maximize the slides. Here we go. Okay, so, and those live in the audience, feel free to stop me and ask me questions at any point as we go through this. And there'll be time for questions at the end. If you're watching this on the recording, there's lots of ways to get in contact with me. The best way, probably on Facebook Messenger or via email through my website, thelauralucas.com, or email me, laura@thelauralucas.com. And certainly feel free to ask me any questions about this. So, divine alchemy is the process by which you transmute your limiting bullshit stories into divine truth and liberate your soul business. So, I talk about the limiting bullshit thoughts that are in your head, the demons that are in your head, the ones that sort of whisper in your ear, that sneaky voice that whispers in your ear that you're not good enough and you might as well give up now because everyone's going to find out, and then everyone will know and you'll be humiliated and you'll lose everything and nobody's going to love you and all that delicious stuff. You know the voices, you know the stuff that goes on for you. And what you'll see through this process is they're much more pervasive than you probably realize. Um, because these voices happen below surface level. They happen in the sort of less conscious and unconscious mind. And what we're going to do here is bring them up into consciousness. But the thing about these voices is, it's not just you. When I first learned about this stuff, I was amazed to discover um, that everybody has these voices. Everybody has this stuff going on. And that was liberating in itself, to know that I wasn't the only one having these weird doubts and thoughts and beliefs about myself. So it's not just you, this happens to everyone. When you are being driven by these limiting voices, you're out of control. Um, it's the part of our brains that has been here evolutionary since we were reptiles is in control. That's the part that's in control of you. The evolved human part of your brain, the logical thinking part of your brain, is not available to you when you're in the grip of these voices. And you know you're in the grip of these voices because you've been triggered. You have these moments where your day's going fine, everything's going great, then suddenly you receive an email asking about something that you know you should have done. And you're triggered, you're in panic mode, and you're telling yourself, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I've done this. They're never going to trust me again. All that sort of stuff, that's the sign that you're out of control when you're getting those triggered thoughts. And I would encourage you, once you learn this process, anytime you know you're out of control, just stop. Stop in that moment and take a moment to go through this process. And once you learn it, you're able to go through it quite quickly in the moment and take yourself back into the truth and switch off those limiting voices and re-access the whole of your brain and know the truth and make your decision from there rather than from being driven by fear. So it's not just you that has these voices. When you have them, you're actually out of control and your behaviour's being driven. And here's the crucial part: it's almost all lies. There's probably foundation in truth with most of what the voices say, and that's why we believe them. And that's why we allow ourselves to be driven by them. And even our logical minds will listen to this stuff. But you'll see unequivocally through this process, because it is quite a logical step by step process, and there are some rules that let you see unequivocally that what's going on is not true. So when you are in the grip of these voices, you are out of control and being driven, and crucially, you're being driven by things that aren't true. So it's not desirable. You want to be being driven by things that are true. Um, okay, so let me know if there's any questions at this stage. That's just a little bit of background to what goes on here. So how do you silence those voices, the limiting beliefs that go on for you? Um, you can't overpower these voices, and there's a lot of stuff out there in mindset work and personal development about silencing your inner critic, and silence the voices and don't listen to it and push it down and push it away. But in my experience, that's what actually gives it more power. When you try and crush down what's really going on under the surface, it just pops up another time and drives your behavior another time. um, you can't actually overpower your instincts. This is the way our brains are wired for thousands and thousands of years of evolution. We've been wired this way, and we're wired this way um, for our survival. That's why these fears are so strong. When logically we know that, for example, asking someone for a sale and them saying no, it's really no big deal. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't have any impact on your life, your worth, anything like that. And yet it can be paralyzing. And the reason for that is we're activating parts of our brain that are designed to keep us alive. And they're designed to keep us alive in a world that we no longer live in a world that was fraught with danger, in a world where if you were rejected by your tribe, you did face death. You pretty much couldn't survive on your own. In a world where if you did decide to do something you'd never done before, you might face death. So that's why it's so strong. And you can't overpower this stuff because it's so hardwired. But what you can do is you can short circuit the fear. And the way you short circuit those fears is you actually listen to them, you actually engage with them. And as you'll see through the process, you show all parts of your mind that what it fears isn't true, and the charge just goes from it then. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so it's a five-step process that follows a movie metaphor, because really it's about changing the story. And our brains actually work surprisingly like a recorded movie. And what happens, if you've had an awkward or embarrassing moment, anytime you recall it, you can play it like a movie. It'll go round and round and round in your head on repeat, making you feel worse and worse and worse. But actually, we have the ability to go back and change that tape into the truth, into what actually went on in that situation, not the negative story that your brain's telling you to keep you ashamed and keep you small. And our brain is working against us when we're triggered with these thoughts, but we're going to use the way the brain works in our favor. We're going to use it for us. So it's 5 steps to change the tape in your head, and it follows a movie metaphor all the way through. So the first step is the rewind. And when we're using this process, this divine alchemy process, we use it on events that have actually happened. And the idea is to go back in time and rewind and actually re experience that event that happened It's not remembering it from here, it's actually going back in time in your mind and re experiencing it, and actually going back in time in your body and feeling the feelings and sensations that went on. Because when we do that, we actually trigger the unconscious thoughts that went on in that moment that we didn't really know about because they were mostly unconscious. And even the ones we did know about, they were so unpleasant and uncomfortable, we just wanted to push them away and move on as if they weren't there. But we need to access those thoughts so that we can then prove to ourselves that they're not true. So in the rewind, there's two steps to it. The first is setting the scene, and it needs to be a very specific scene. So when you're choosing something to work through, um, this process, choose something that's specific. So if you know that you always get triggered in a sales call when it comes to the point where you have to say your price, for example, you need to use a specific example of a call where you got triggered when you had to say your price, so that you can set the scene as specifically as possible. If you have something significant in your life that you want to work on, but you feel like you don't have all the memories surrounding it, you can still try and use this process, but it certainly works best if the more you can set the scene, so that you can actually go back there and re-experience it. It just helps your memory and helps trigger the thoughts. So in setting the scene, you're thinking about, um, who was there, what was said, where were you, what was going on, and then you want to actually pinpoint the trigger. So um, in a meeting, for example, a whole lot of things go on, and you might go through a big portion of that meeting not being triggered, but there comes a very specific moment where you go from not triggered to triggered. And it can be something that somebody said, it can be something they didn't say, it can be a look they gave you, it can be the fact they didn't look at you. Um, there might be several triggers then within that conversation, and it almost doesn't matter which one you pick. The one that feels the strongest to you will give you the best results, but really all roads lead to Rome. The trigger is just the key to help us peel back the layers and unravel all the limiting thoughts and beliefs that are going on under the surface. So set the scene, pinpoint the trigger, pick one trigger if there's more than one to work on. That'll make it easier. And then once you've done that, just hold those memories in your mind and take a moment to get in character. And that's get in the character that you were in the moment when that happened. So if it helps, close your eyes, take 3 deep, slow, intentional breaths, and just breathe into the memory. And as you breathe in, feel the feelings that went on in your body the moment that you were triggered, the physical sensations. So maybe your fists clenched and you tensed up, or maybe your stomach dropped and your palms started to sweat. Just notice what went on and notice the emotions. Notice if you felt rage, or if you felt anger, or if you felt scared or humiliated. Really notice that and name the feelings. And by the time you've done that, uh, you'll go straight into, once you're actually able to feel those feelings, you'll go straight into the thoughts that went through your head in that moment, and we'll move straight on to step 2 without stopping. Now when you're doing this yourself, you can either write down or speak into the recorder on your phone the feelings that came up, and then capture the thoughts. If when you're working one-to-one with me, I do this with you and I help you capture the thoughts. But when you're doing it yourself, name your feelings, and we'll go straight into step 2, because by the time you've done the get in character section, it should just naturally trigger those thoughts. So I'll move into step 2 and I'll pause for questions. So step 2 is the action replay. And once you've done the rewind process and you're really back in that moment, the thoughts will start to come. And if we stick with the example of the sales conversation, for example, where you're asked, what's your prices? The thoughts that come up might be, oh my God, what should I say? I don't think they can afford this price. And they're going to think I'm greedy and that I charge too much. And whatever comes up for you, whatever those thoughts are, don't analyze them. Don't what's the word, don't justify them in any way. Some of the thoughts that come up, you'll know they're not true, but at this point you just want to capture everything, because this is the material that we're going to use to make the shift for you. um, And you might have some really ridiculous or unpleasant thoughts, or thoughts that make you feel like a horrible person. So, if you've been triggered by someone stealing your parking space, you might have a thought like, oh my God, I just want to ram their car, or I just want to punch them in the face, or I just hate them, and swear words might come and everything like that. Don't worry, just let it all out. Um, so that's the action replay. You're just letting everything out there. Any questions at this stage about the whole process? Nope, I think we're good. Okay. So step 3 is the director's chair, and where the last step was all about just getting those raw thoughts and emotions out without engaging our logical brain, without justifying them in any way. This step is where we actually go in and really analyze those thoughts and really check, are they fact or are they fiction? And because you've been living with these thoughts your whole life, initially when you try and do this, it can be quite difficult to see the fiction from the fact. And this is where the rules come in. This is the really logical piece that I mentioned to you that really shuts down your ego, shuts down your ego's nonsense. And there's simple rules. When you've captured all of the thoughts that you had and written them down as much in full sentences as you can, you simply go back through them. And you can go back through all of them, or you can just pick out the ones that feel the most uncomfortable or the most significant. And for each thought, you're checking, is it a fact or is it a fiction? And for each of these rules, it's a yes or no answer. There's no debate around this. So it's a fact if it's a feeling or emotion. So if you felt angry or embarrassed or upset in any way, even if the thought that gave rise to those feelings and emotions is not true, the feelings are still true. You can't unfeel those feelings. So, feelings and emotions are always a fact, and your first hand experiences are always a fact. So, something that's actually happened to you and is an actual fact. Pretty much everything else is a fiction. So, fictions are things like sweeping generalizations. So, things like he's always late. Even someone who is habitually late by accident, sometimes they're on time or they're early. And this is where there can be a seed of truth in some of these stories we're telling ourselves. But when we take them down to the actual objective truth, it just takes away a lot of the emotional charge, and you feel huge relief when you do that. So, any sweeping generalization is a fiction. Any judgment against yourself or someone else is a fiction. And again, there can be truth in uh, or seeds of truth in some of the judgments. So judgments you might have on yourself, like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Well, you're not such an idiot. If, for example, in the example that I gave about sending the email with the wrong information, you're not a complete idiot. It's just that you've made a mistake. And do you see where it's much less charged, saying, I've made a mistake here? And there can be other truths around that, which we'll get into a bit more in the next step. But it's a whole world of difference from, oh my God, I'm a complete idiot and I don't deserve to be alive, kind of thing, than I've made a mistake here. It just takes so much of the charge away. The other things that are fiction are anything that's going to happen in the future. Um, so thinking, oh, they're never going to agree to that, or they're not going to be able to afford it, they're not going to buy my product. Anything like that is something that's going to happen in the future. Or, I'm never going to make any sales, or I'm never going to make enough sales, or I'm never going to hit my target. These are all things that are in the future. And none of us knows the future. And this one can get sticky where you're going into a situation that you've been in before, especially with people that you've been in that situation with before. You can tell yourself that you know what's going to happen, and it's just not true. And when you hold on to the fact that you know what's going to happen, you actually don't hold space for a different outcome, a more desired outcome to happen. So anything in the future is a fiction. And finally, and this is a huge one, a huge thing that drives so much of our behavior, so much of the time, is other people's thoughts. And the truth is, we simply don't know what other people's thoughts are. And you'll know yourself that you've been surprised in the past by thinking, so for example, thinking, oh, that person isn't interested in working with me, they don't have enough money to buy my product, and suddenly they turn around and say, I have to work with you, here's my credit card. These things happen. Other people's thoughts, the only way we can know them is if we ask that person what their thoughts are, and if we believe them, because people can tell us things that aren't entirely true, whether they believe them to be true or not. um, and when we take out other people's thoughts, again, it takes away so much negative charge and emotion from the situation. So that's the director's chair, and you would do that on every statement that you've gotten from the previous step. Or if you're in a hurry or you just really want to cut to the chase, you can do it just on the ones that feel most significant for you. Okay. The next step is take two, and this is where we rewrite the truth. So for every statement that you've decided if it's fact or fiction, the fact ones stay. The whole point of this is to get you into the objective truth. So the ones that are facts, the feelings and emotions, they stay. And there will be some statements that are true. So you might have a statement that says, I don't want to be here. And the truth is that you didn't want to be here in that moment. And that's fine. We leave the ones that are true. The ones that we've assigned to fiction, we're going to reclaim and rewrite the objective truth about them. And in taking away the negative charge in the last step, you get a sense of relief. In moving into the truth, that's when your paradigm changes. You actually see the world in a different light, and a whole new world of possibilities open up for you when you rewrite the truth. So let me take you through an example of rewriting the truth. So maybe it's in that sales conversation and you're telling yourself, my product's too expensive for them. They're not really committed to it, and they don't want to buy my product because it's too expensive, and they think I'm greedy, and they don't see the value in it. They don't see that it's worthwhile. You can rewrite the truth of a statement like that that says, yeah, uh, when you're rewriting the truth here, it's not about writing the opposite of the fiction that you've told yourself. It's not about just trying to turn it around into some rainbows and unicorns fantasy that's like, oh, they're gonna love my product so much that they don't care about the price. If you don't actually at your core really believe that, that's going to do more harm than good. And you're not grounded until you're grounded in your own truth, and it's your truth in relation to this situation. And when you're grounded in your own truth, then you're fully empowered to decide exactly what you want to do, which we'll talk about in the next step. So if your fear is, oh my God, they're just going to think this is far too expensive, and they're going to think I'm greedy, they're going to think it's not worth it. What's the truth of that situation? Well, the truth is that I don't know what they're going to think about the price. I know that they've told me that they're in startup in their business and they don't have a lot of money to spare. And I also know they've told me that they've got this problem and it's really holding them back from moving forward, and they really want to solve it. So they're pretty committed to this. And I also know that when it comes to money, different people make different decisions and have different priorities. What I also know is that if they do commit and they pay to work with me, um, I know that I can solve the problem that they've got. And I know when I solve that problem that they've got, that their business can then take off, and they'll have that skill forever, and they'll be able to use it always in their business, and they're going to get continuous value out of it. And actually, I've done that inner work, and I know that my product is worth this money, and I stand firm in it. And I'm willing to actually hold space for them to step up, and to step into their power and invest in themselves to solve this problem and have the business that is so important to them that they really want. And I hope you can see how that's a much more grounded truth than saying, oh, it's going to be fine. They're going to be totally happy about my product. This is not about convincing yourself. This is about really standing firm in your truth. And I mean, that's just one example. Other examples where you'll rewrite the truth of this will be where maybe you're telling yourself that, um, I'm never going to make any sales, and that means I'm not going to have enough money, and I'm going to lose my business. And if I lose my business, then I've let down my family. Um, and actually, someone that can't feed their family and look after their family is a loser, and I'm just a complete loser, and I don't deserve to be here. And that's a truth that a lot of people get. Well, to be honest, everybody gets to in one shape or form. That, what's the point in carrying on? And it's bleak. Um, and you might say, why do you do this, Laura? Why do you, you know, really follow those feelings all the way down to where it feels really bad? But the truth is, those feelings are there anyway. You're just kidding yourself that they're not there, and they're still there, and they're driving your behavior, and they're weighing you down like an anchor. But when we go down and feel them, yes, it's uncomfortable. But actually, just holding space for yourself to say, whoa, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm carrying around. I'm carrying around judgments from when I was a little girl, and my dad used to judge people who didn't have jobs and said they were losers. And I'm telling myself that I'm one of those losers, and actually my dad's not going to love me, and I don't deserve to be here. I'm carrying this into every sales call that I make. um, and oh my God, actually, no wonder I'm finding this so difficult. And holding space for the poor little wounded child inside of you that is scared they're going to lose the love of their father, holding that space, witnessing it, is a powerful thing in itself. And then when we reclaim the truth of that, we're actually transforming it. And that's when we switch off that negative thought. We will need to switch it off again. It will get triggered again because that's the way our brains work. And that's why I recommend using this as a practice, and doing it regularly. Um, but when we step into the truth, we'll switch that off. So just to take that other example that says, I'm never going to make enough sales, and I'll lose my business, and I'll let everyone down, and I can't feed my family, and that means I'm a loser. And if I'm a loser that can't feed my family, then my dad's not going to love me. And actually, maybe he's right, and I don't deserve to be here. And reclaiming the truth of that is, I'm telling myself I'm not going to make any sales. I'm not making as many sales as I would like to be making at the moment. But if I stick with this and keep learning as much as I've been learning, and keep learning more about sales and marketing, and actually keep working through the things that are holding me back, then I am going to make more sales because I believe in this too much to allow it not to work. And even if I did get to the stage where my business wasn't working for me, I've not let anyone down. I've just been brave enough to go after my dreams, and actually giving my kids that example is something that makes me feel really proud, and actually a gift to them that's probably better than watching me, sit in a job that I really don't feel, and be able to provide material things for them, but never actually being true to myself. So I actually really honor myself for having done that. And even if people do judge me, even if people I really love and care about judge me for this, I'm wise enough to know that that's only a reflection of their judgments on themselves. Um, and depending on your situation, I know that even if my dad's disappointed with me and judges me in that way, there's nothing I could ever do or say to stop him from loving me. And I know that's not necessarily the case for everyone. Um, there are people who genuinely have difficult relationships with their parents and don't feel that the love is there. And that's when the truth would be, even if people who I've wanted to love me in my life have let me down and not been able to love me, then I still really love and honour myself. And that's a beautiful truth to step into, and really shifts and changes, takes away all the negative charge. And it's maybe a truth that you don't feel completely solid and grounded in to begin with. And that's why you practice stepping into that truth every day. And what I find with both myself and my clients is, once we get that kernel of truth and start to stand solid in it, it's a bit like being in the middle of the ocean with a little swimming pool float to stand on, and you're all wobbly, and that's your little bit of truth. But there's more truth to find, and you can start to build more truth out till you're actually standing on a really solid island of truth. And that's the solid foundation from which you take every decision, from which you make every action, from which you do everything in your life and business. And when you act from there, that's when you start to express the divine truth of what is really inside of you. And that's when you start to live the life that you were really meant for. So this step is where the alchemy happens. This is where you reclaim the truth. This is where you turn the leaden bullshit lies into gold, that is the solid foundation from which you live your life. And it does take a little bit of practice to be able to rewrite those objective truths. Okay. So you're now in the truth, and we move into the last step, step 5, which is the Oscar winning performance. And this is where it's a beautiful thing to have switched off the lies and get that relief. It's a beautiful thing to now know what the truth is, and that changes your vibration, and things will start to change if that's all you do. But actually, if you really want to change your life, acting in alignment with that truth is what gives a strong, clear signal to the universe and calls in what it is that you really, truly want. Um, and this is where, based on the truth that you've stepped into, you choose what you want. And you choose what you want by opening up to all the possibilities. So now that I know, we'll go back to the sales example. Now that I know that, I'm actually feel really grounded in the value that I'm offering through this service. And I accept that even though I know this person in front of me and I know a bit about their financial situation and they've maybe made negative comments about things that are priced highly before, I accept that I actually don't know what they would think about this price in relation to this product and the value and the worth of it. And when you open up to all the possibilities, really open up to all the possibilities, even ridiculous possibilities, because this is where you start to break out of the conditioned behaviors. Because what's happened when we've been in the lie is we've not even been able to see all the possibilities that are open. And the possibilities here would be that I could just tell them the price. Other possibilities are, because I don't fully believe in myself, I could offer them a discounted price, or I could just decide I'm not going to make the offer to them at all because I'm scared of what they say. All of those possibilities still exist, but based on the truth, you can ask yourself, am I willing to actually stand by a price and tell them what it is, and just stay silent and listen to what they have to say about it, and know that it's not a reflection on me and it's not a judgment of me. And once you've made that choice, visualize it. Visualize it going how you would want it to go. And this is hugely powerful. Even when you are using this process to review a situation that didn't go your way, at this point, visualize what you would have liked to have done. So where you maybe froze and weren't able to tell them your price or offered them a price that was way below what it should have been, this is where you would visualize saying, this is my price, and visualize the outcome that you wanted, because our unconscious mind can't tell the difference between when you are imagining something and when you're actually going through it in the real external world. So the more you visualize the outcome that you want, the more you're training your brain to say, oh, we do this all the time, we're good at this, and your unconscious mind gets used to it, and it stops being triggered by fear as much because it's not a scary, fearful situation. You've done it lots of times before. And finally, the most important step is to act. And again, if you're using this to review a situation that's in the past, you might say, well, the moment's gone. But actually, it's quite a rare thing that there's still nothing you can do to change the situation. You might have flaked and not made an offer on your sales call. You can get back in touch with that potential client and say, look, I really enjoyed our conversation the other day, and I didn't make an offer to you, but I've realized I could really help you here, and I wondered if you're interested in hearing how I could help you as a paying client. The final step is to actually act on it. So there will be some situations where the moment's completely gone and there's nothing you can do, and visualizing is all you can do so you can make a better choice next time. But this is where you'll change your life, by actually acting in alignment with the new truth that you've discovered. And when you start to apply this to everything, is when you start to live the life, to create the business, to have the clients, to have the money, the relationships, the lifestyle, everything you want. when you start to get into the truth on everything and make a choice based in what's true and act on it. And that's basically the whole process. But the final step is a bonus step, and that's back to rehearsals in my slightly cheesy movie metaphor. And that is just to practice using this process, because you get triggered multiple times every day. As you start to use this process every day, you'll get triggered less and less. And I encourage you to choose something that has triggered you on a daily basis. Um, Practice steps 1 to 5, and gradually you'll feel the triggers reduce as you go through the process of switching them off and acting in alignment with your truth, because you'll see that your truth is true and it does bring you the results that you wanted. So that's the whole divine alchemy process. Any questions at this stage? No? Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. If you're watching this as a recording, as part of a wider program, or because you're going to have a one-to-one session with me, what will happen next is I will actually take you through this on a one-to-one basis. If you're just learning this as a standalone and you've got any questions about it, then you're possibly in a Facebook group with me anyway. If not, you can email me, laura@thelauralucas.com. You can message me on Facebook. And certainly, when you get down to those core limiting beliefs, the really dark feelings, if you're finding you can't get into the truth, never get stuck there. I would hate to think of you being stuck there. Reach out to me and I'll move you forward from that place. And I'm happy to hear any questions that you've got. So thank you for listening, and I hope this really helps you.